Unfortunately, mate, a lot of these mid-size wagons, your MUXs are the same. They've only got a 1650 rear axle load, just have fairly modest rear axle compliance limits on them. So it sort of limits how much gear and weighty gear you can carry.
Let me introduce Cameron from TTweigh. How long I've been looking forward to this day.
I can just tell, mate. I can tell you're pumped. You're here nice and early, ready to go.
We are about to do a weigh-in, guys. Now, not me.
Well, you will be part of it, mate.
Hey, if you want to explain a little bit about your business, how you started, what we're doing today, etc.
Yeah, no worries at all.
All to you.
Yeah, so look, we started actually very close to 4 years ago, May 2021. I've got a business partner in Darwin, Shane. Initially, we established a business up there, the Territory Way. After about 12 months of having that business up there, it went very well. We decided to open a second arm, which I ran, travelling Australia. So I was weighing people when we travelled Australia. I've just finished that, actually. Just finished 2.5 years on the road. And then come back to Brisbane, where I'm based, travel around southeast Queensland and went pretty much anywhere. And help people out with their weights and make sure that they're safe and balanced and answer any questions. A lot of people these days, a lot of misinformation and confusion online. So a lot of clients engage us just to, they can ask those questions that they want to ask without being intimidated online and get to the bottom of answers, truthful answers. One of our points of difference with our business is we take the time to go through everything with a client on the day. We don't have a time or a time limit. So some of our weighs can actually take 3 or 4 hours. So we do multiple variations on the day. We look at where you're at from a balance point of view as well as a weights point of view. 9 out of 10 clients we've weighed in 4 years are overweight and at least one weight compliance.
Wow.
I believe 91%. Admittedly, a lot of that is travellers, and travellers tend to be very heavy. So particularly in Darwin and myself on the road, we weighed an awful lot of travellers. So that may be a little distorted from some of the eastern seaboard weighs.
Okay.
That's our data. The other thing though is balance. So a lot of setups out there are not ideally balanced. So we spend a lot of time. We'll go through that with you today. Corner weights, heights, levels, just to make sure you're where you need to be. You're as safe as you can be on the road. We also go through a bit of a safety and compliance check on the day as well today. Just go through a few things that caravanners, particularly first timers, are not aware of. Just to be aware of. Some of those are Australian design rule regulations. Some of them are state by state guidances. So we go through that. And we also go through recommended tyre pressures as well, based on your weights and your specs of your tyres. So things like that. So we'll go through today based on where you're at and let you know what your recommended pressures are. All right, so the first thing we like to do is just to make sure all your compliance numbers are spot on. So I've got a detailed database of vehicles and whatnot, but I really just like to double check with the compliance plates and or manuals for the vehicle. So we'll go through that first, just make sure that the information I'm giving you is accurate in respect of where you're at with your compliance numbers. From there, I'll take a couple of measurements that we need to take, and I'll explain why later, those measurements, what they are and why we need them. We start with the vehicle first, so we'll do the vehicle, camper.
Okay.
Right, so we'll put the scales underneath the car, with you in there, obviously.
Yeah, that's going to be interesting.
We'll drag the car up onto the scales with the camper attached. While you're up there, that'll give us our hitched corner weights. We'll then unhitch the camper from the car and get our unhitched corner weights. Now, there's a method in that madness. We like to give you both sets of numbers. Reason being, a lot of vehicles, when they set up to travel Australia, loaded with accessories, particularly winches, bull bars, lights at the front. So we find a lot of vehicles go over their front axle capacity when they're not towing. And then when they put the caravan or camper on the back, quite often that rear axle gets into trouble as well. So we like to just go through that process of getting both hitched and unhitched corner weight. Believe it or not, the rear axle on the car is the single biggest compliance that people go over that we weigh. So, and it's the hidden one that no one talks about. Not a lot of people talk about online. So
I had a guy in one of the replies in one of the videos recently, I don't know if you've read it, where he had this big Land Cruiser, GVM upgrade, everything, and he was well under the GCM.
Yep. He
got it professionally weighed.
Yep.
He said that he was 250 kilos over on his rear axle weight.
Yep. We'll just give you an example of that. When I was travelling, we weighed an awful lot of 200 series Land Cruisers. Now, a very common upgrade for the 200 series is a Lovell's. They've got two different upgrades, but the lower one is what a lot of people tend to go with, and that is a 3,800 kilo GVM upgrade to the Land Cruiser. So it gives you about an extra 400, 450 kilos of payload. But the problem with that upgrade is your rear axle is increased from 1,950 kilos to just 2,000. It's only a 50 kilo increase. So we ran into the situation an awful lot where, you know, clients have fallen into that false sense of security where they've got that big GVM upgrade, and Lovell's do a GCM upgrade as well. So the big GVM, GCM upgrade on that kit, but their rear axle is only increased by 50 kilos. And so many people ran into problems because they had the big caravans on the back, loaded the back of the car up with fridges and all that sort of thing.
I think a lot of people are under the conception that when they get a GVM upgrade, that their axle weight load is going to be increased enormously in correspondence to that mass weight. And I think a lot of people are wrong there. I'm probably going to be surprised to find out just those details you mentioned.
You're 100% right, 100% right. In fact, when I talk GVM upgrades to clients, the number one focus for us is on the rear axle. It's usually the number that's limiting. So in our reports, and I'll show you because we identify that very, very crystal clear in our reports, and we often are going to a client, this is the one that you need to target and look at, not so much a GVM upgrade, because you're right, there are different GVM upgrades on the market for different vehicles, and all of them quite often have very different rear axle, and they're not in proportion to that GVM upgrade. So what we'll do is we'll check those compliance numbers first.
So what's happening here now, guys, is Cameron has just explained to me what he's done. He's checked all the paperwork, etc., to make sure they're legitimate, they're correctly. So that's all checked by checking the vehicle placards, etc., the camper trailer placards, and your manual as well, because all the details that's required for your tow vehicle is all in the manual. The next thing he's done is he's checked the trailer height, because that kind of makes quite a huge difference to the weight, whether you've got a single axle or a double axle trailer, camper trailer, caravan, whatever you're towing, also makes the difference. We are going to weigh my tow vehicle, the Pajero, first with the camper trailer on, and then we are going to weigh it without the camper trailer. This is going to be very interesting. You can watch in the background where he's putting a set of scales under each individual tyre. So they're going to weigh each 4 tyres, what the weight is on those 4 tyres. So it's going to help to see if my vehicle is balanced. Another funny thing, guys, this is going to be a tester. I've seen so many videos where some of you have trouble driving up on the little ledges like that with a bit of weight at the back when you're towing up. Let's see how I do.
Low range, Phil. That's what we always do.
Low range?
Get you in low range. Because believe it or not, it takes a bit more to get up on the scales than what you think.
Yeah, I reckon it probably would. There you go. We'll go low range.
They're all.
So Cameron is actually checking the load rating of the tyre, and he just put new tyres in a few weeks ago, and I paid extra and got more heavy duty tyres, so they're actually a light truck tyre. He's now checking the tyres on the camper van.
You ready to go, mate? Yep. Moment of truth. All right, well done. Believe it or not, that's all right. Everyone's ready? Yes, you do. All right.
What's on? So while it's on the scale, you won't have the damper attached.
Yep. All right. Wait.
Can friendly. Right over here in the back to the car.
Actually, we'll use mine, mate. That way we leave yours. We'll actually leave your view where it is.
Okay.
The weights, I'll use mine.
Yep. We're now going to and Mitch my camper trailer. You probably won't need to take all that out. That's all clear. What's that like? That's just the safety chain. Not right now. We'll do it when we wait a camper. Was it Jackson done? Okay.
These are the best thing.
Or well done, Rick. Make it easier so people. All right. Hope I did my pretty good.
So that's part one done, Phil.
We've got our hitch, 10 hitch
Corner weight for our car. I'm not going to give you anything away.
I'm just going to say, guys, that I don't know what the numbers are yet.
No, I don't tell you that to the end.
He's got this look on his face and I can't quite read it. What does that mean? Can you work it out? We'll find out soon.
We will. All right, let's get the trailer done, mate.
Yeah.
One thing you're going to get today is a lot of info. So it may not necessarily be, you might be in the planning stage. You know, you're just saying to me off camera that there's a couple of things you got in there, you got a few options maybe you can do. The beauty of doing this process is you get enormous information on exactly where you're at. You know what I mean? So if you're thinking of doing something or you want to know whether you can do something, you're not going to waste money on putting upgrades to your car and adding this and adding that.
Exactly,
If you're already in that position.
Yeah.
But the other flip side is we get a lot of clients come to us who want a GDM upgrade. They've done their research, they know they're heavy, they know they're going to be heavy. And now they come to us and go, right, so what is the right upgrade? What do we need? And save enormous amounts of money that way. Going back to that Levels upgrade for the 200 series just quickly.
Yeah.
Levels have got two. They've got a 3800 and a 4200 GDM upgrade. Now with the 4200, you get an extra 304 kilos on the rear axle. The number of 200 series we've weighed in the last 4 years that have had the 3800, then they've had to double down and spend again and get the bigger one to cover there.
The one.
So if they'd done the way beforehand, before they got the GDM upgrade, they would have saved themselves enormous amounts of money.
So I was checking your social media the other day and there was someone put a comment on there saying, oh, but you can get this done at Pedders for $75.
I must say, though, if I can, just quickly, there's nothing wrong with going to somewhere like Pedders. It's
Yeah.
$25.
Yeah.
My business partner in Darwin, Shane, we work closely with Pedders. We do a lot of work with them up there. You know, if you're on a budget, you just want to know where you're at, where your base numbers are, it's a great service. It's just we offer a completely different. Use the analogy to people who are buying a car.
Yeah.
You know, you've got those that go out and buy a Toyota Land Cruiser, and you've got those that buy, an LDV or something like that.
Yeah. They're offering a great service,
Absolutely.
etc. and so
And
on.
I encourage clients to go and do that if for whatever reason they can't afford the complete service. At least go and check your weights at somewhere like that or a weighbridge and know you're safe, know that you're insured.
Yeah.
Because, again, if I can just elaborate, business partner and I weighed a client in Darwin last year, in the dry season last year. First time I've ever weighed someone and spoken to them face to face was had a vehicle accident and not been paid out by the insurer because it was overweight. So they were not allowed to touch anything. They did everything up on the side of the road, took it to a holding yard in Broome, and they were not allowed to even touch their clothes until it had been assessed by the assessor. We wanted it weighed. They were denied. They were, I won't tell you how much, but they were well over. And they were actually denied insurance. For a lot of people that are watching, a lot of them will that's why I love raising that, because I go, I can just go down Weybridge. And you're going to see later the difference. Because you can't go to Weybridge for 2 hours and hold it up when you dump in your water tanks and you move stuff around and then you unhitch and hitch. All this sort of stuff, you know. Because, and again, things like the Pro Ball, Well, I'm going to give you an exact accurate toe ball weight measurement at the toe hitch, not back there where your jockey wheels.
Yeah, okay.
So when you use one of those thingos, where do you put it?
I said
You put it under here?
no, I think that's there.
Yeah, so that's not giving you an accurate reading straight off the bat. So if you think about it, put 20 kilos of weight here, you got 20 kilos on your ball. You put 20 kilos here, that weight's there for sure. Even though it's ever so a smidgen, then shared with your axle and your toe hitch. It's been magical so far anyway. So far so good. All right. How good's this little toy?
Oh, tell me about it. I tell you what, I am so glad that I got rid of the Arc 750 because I reckon that would have put me over if I kept that on there.
Much heavier, that's for sure.
My guess.
The ones I've weighed those, they vary. They're usually around about the 18 kilo mark, somewhere around there. So
Yeah, I think mine was about that.
the complete kit of these are 7.5 kilos.
Yep.
Australian made in Sydney.
Yeah, exactly. But the beauty is with that is that when you're driving, you don't need to leave it on there. You can just take it off and carry it out.
All right. And I might just do a little plug. We stock and sell these, by the way, Phil.
And they do, because TTweigh, you've actually got an online store.
We do.
I've seen his store and he sells all their Boss gear and accessories as well.
All Australian gear, mate.
Yep.
We don't stock anything other than Australian gear. So, yeah, all the Boss range from Jurgen, Bromman and Segan in Sydney. Yeah, I check gear, Morby hooks from Dick's Engineering in Renmark in South Australia. Couple Mate, all the hitches from Couple Mate in Brisbane. Great local product, really good high quality product. Yeah, so we like us try and support other small businesses in this country.
Talking about the hitches, I know that hitch is pretty heavy. In hindsight, it would have been nice if I could have got one that, as great as these adjustable ones are, it would have been great if I got one that wasn't adjustable because it would have been a lot lighter. But I couldn't find one, at least at the time when because I was in a hurry to get a hitch because I had to go down the Gold Coast and pick this up.
Yep.
So I just had to buy one locally somewhere here. And I had a good idea because I asked the guy the height of where that ball is before I purchased. So I had a pretty good idea what height I need to be at. And I went around town and that was the only one I could find where I could get close to that height.
Yeah. Well, that's something we'll have a look at today because you never know. We might be able to put you in the direction of a Couple Mate if it works. So, well, the first thing we need to do, which will be the first potential variation we'll do today, is check the level of your camper, see exactly where that's at. Because as I'll go through with you shortly on ball weight, the level of your rear end plays a significant role in what your ball weight is, and then in turn what your rear axle is. All right, so let's talk ball weight for a minute. I like to spend just a few minutes with our clients going through this because in our opinion, this is the most important number we'll do today, is this one. Why is that? Firstly, it's a compliance number on its own. All right, so you have to be under a certain number with your ball weight. In most instances, it's dictated by your car. Okay, so your car will have a maximum ball weight number from its compliance side of things, compliance plate side of things. In your case, yours is 250 kilos with the Pajero. But in some instances, campers and caravans actually have a max permissible ball weight number on the compliance plate of the van. So you do need to check that as well, just to make sure that you don't exceed that, because that could be a limiting factor. All right, so that's the first thing. The second thing is that your ball weight, we calculate it once. It's actually included or affects 3 significant compliances though, and this is what a lot of people don't realise. And I'm going to go through all this shortly with you, with what everything means in plain English. We've got a handout that we'll go through. But in a nutshell, your ball weight forms part of your vehicle's GVM weight when it's hitched to the car. It forms part of your camper or caravan's aggregate trailer mass weight. But what a lot of people don't realise is for every 100 kilos of ball weight, roughly 1.5 times that ball weight ends up on your rear axle. So it significantly affects your rear axle compliance when you hitch to the car. And the reason that's the case is leverage. So you are connecting your ball here, your toe hitch, back behind your rear axle. So from a leverage point of view, what happens to your car? It obviously lifts at the front, and that weight transfers and shifts to the rear in addition to the weight on the rear. Now, there are a number of things that affect what that multiple is. It's roughly around 1.4, 1.5 times. But a significant factor is how far your pin here protrudes from the back of the vehicle. The longer that is, the more that pendulum effect is, the more the effect's going to be on your rear axle.
Oh, wow.
So quite often, I laid one Ram 1500 in Brisbane last year, where he actually had two completely different hitch setups. He was towing a big van, admittedly, it was a 4.5 ton van. But I actually went through the process with him to compare the two, and that was 60 kilos difference on his rear axle just from the different hitch. Because one was significantly protruding out behind the back of the Ram compared to the other one. So that's just something to bear in mind. I actually weighed a client yesterday who was over their rear axle, and we're actually looking at a different hitch setup. He had a very, very long tow hitch that came out. So we're looking at getting something slightly different for him just to help minimise that effect. So that's just something to be aware of. Not a lot of people realise that multiple effect. It's not kilo for kilo on your rear axle. Your ball weight's 1.5 times, and that's what catches a lot of people out, and why quite often with caravans, rear axle of the car is the number one compliance that people go over. The next thing then with your ball weight is it's the easiest number to manipulate and change. So mate, if this is the only number we got to work on today, that's usually the easiest number to get right. It's a simple case sometimes of moving things around in your camper, removing a couple of things, moving them from front to back to front, whatever we need to do.
Okay.
And you're going to see that today, what impact that has on the ball weight. The other big effect, of course, is water. Water traditionally is the biggest weight factor in any caravan, camper. So quite often, how much water you carry, where you carry it, and where you use it can drastically affect your ball
Well,
weight.
there's 200 litres in here now.
Exactly, and depending on where those tanks are,
Right at the very back.
so that's going to drastically affect your ball weight, clearly, isn't it? So we'll go through that. That'll be one of the variations we do. We weigh with and without water, just to show our clients exactly what impact that has. So the last thing with ball weight is, what are you looking for? What's an ideal tow ball weight? Okay, we recommend that, the guide is 10% of the loaded weight of whatever you're towing. It should be on the ball. So, your camper's got a GM of 2 tonne. If you happen to be 2 tonne today, you're looking for around 200. We say, Shane and I say, the 9 to 11% range of your camper is a good ball weight. Right? Some mobile weighers go a bit outside that, 8 to 12. The reason we go 9 to 11 is a lot of the manuals, so manufacturer recommended percentages for tow ball on their vehicles in Australian conditions is 9 to 11%. So we go to do that for the Land Cruiser, Isuzu do it, Mazda do it. So those manufacturers recommend 9 to 11. So we tend to mimic that and narrow it back to what the manufacturer recommends in most instances. Alrighty, so how about we lower this and see where you're at? Do you want to play a game?
I reckon I'm going to be at 240.
240? Okay.
Yeah.
I reckon you're around 220. So
I hope you're right.
let's see where you're at, eh? Wait a minute. This doesn't shit on here, does it? So that was 222, 223. Now, wait a minute. You take this off, she'll drop by about 5 kilos. So just to illustrate that, this is something that's really important. If you're measuring your tow ball at home, it's important to try and measure it at the actual tow hitch connection point. Whereas if you measure it back here, you're not getting an accurate reflection of what your tow ball weight is. The further back you go, so that jockey wheel weighs around about 7 kilos, positioned here. Now when we took it off, it had an effect of about 5 kilos on your ball, which means 2 kilos of that's actually come off your axles. So the further back you go on your camper, that weight apportionment will change.
That's quite amazing how much of a difference it's made.
So you can, again, you look at adding 20 kilos of weight to the back of your camper, that will affect your ball weight by half, by 10 kilos. You take 10 or 15 kilos off here, and you look at this, right? I'm just going to simply lean. Well, that's not with any serious weight. Look what that did.
Yeah.
I actually put some weight on there.
Yeah, that's interesting. Wait.
This is around about 7 kilos. So if you put that, well, I'll tell you. So if you put that, I'll tell you. So if you put that there, So 223. So it's a kilo less. Further back it is. Yep. So that now is spreading that weight partially with your axle.
Okay, so that was registering 4 kilos. Yeah.
Correct. All right, well, how about I put all the numbers together and we see exactly where you're at the moment of truth, not far away. The weighing side, the initial base weight numbers, we've now done.
You offer additional service where we can actually change,
That's right.
work on weights,
exactly
etc.
right.
And that's
Exactly
going to be
right.
really interesting.
Yep.
Okay, let's look
All
at the
right.
numbers.
Let's see where we're at. All right, so the next thing I'd like to do with you is we'll do a load summary, Phil. So we like to go through and list down everything you have in the car and the camper today. So if you ever look back on the reports later, you'll know exactly what you had. And we'll also list down any major things you may not have. So we weigh a lot of people without food and whatnot in the caravan. So we just like to note all that down so we'll know exactly where it's. All right, mate, so the first thing we'll do before we go through the numbers, I just want to drag it out a little bit longer for you, your pain and suffering. All right.
It's fun.
We like to just go through what everything means with every client in plain English. So I've got a acronyms summary here that we provide to every client. So you'll get a copy of this as well today, in addition to our report. And I'd just like to, I mean, you may already be familiar with a lot of these terms. You know, you've done a lot of research. But
Yeah.
I just really want to go through that first, just
Yeah.
to make sure we're all on the same page. And then we'll dive straight into our numbers. So tear weight's your empty dry. We'll start with your camper caravan first. Tear weight's your empty dry weight of your caravan when it was manufactured. Should be nothing in it, all right? Should be no water in the tanks. If you got gas bottles, no gas in the bottles. Any options that were ticked on an options list when you bought the camper or caravan should be included in the tear weight number that's on the compliance plate.
Oh,
Now, the problem is, and I said should about 3 times there, because there's no regulation in the caravan industry. It's one of the problems. So what one manufacturer does and what they include in tear weight can be different from another one. It'd be really nice if the industry had a regulated, this is what must be included in tear weight of your van, so everyone's on the same page. But unfortunately, classic example is gas bottles. Some manufacturers don't include gas bottles at all when they hand a caravan over. Some include gas bottles empty, some include gas bottles full. So that's sort of an example of how this can be sort of muddied waters a little bit. The other important point for your viewers to note around tear weight is if you're ever buying a second-hand caravan or camper, you really need to establish what we call infrastructure items or fixtures have been added to that van post when it was built by a previous owner. So if an owner's added solar panels and a battery system, they've added boxes to the caravan or things like that, that tear weight of the van's materially changed because of those additions. So you've really got to try and understand that and ask questions if you're buying a second-hand van, because on the surface you might think that your payload is a certain number, but if the previous owner's gone and put 4 solar panels and doubled the battery and added an extra water tank or done this or done that, you really don't have as much payload in that van as what you think you do.
Yeah.
You can get into a lot of trouble with it. So
Another thing, and I've been asking these questions around and no one can seem to give me an answer. The tower weight, does that include mattresses and stuff like that?
Good question. In the old days, some caravan manufacturers actually weighed tear weight without mattresses in them. And this comes back to what I just mentioned earlier. Unfortunately, there's no regulation, mate. So that is the second example I actually use to clients when I weigh them. Gas bottles is one, mattresses is the other. There is no definitive answer on that because there's no regulation. And so if you ever buy a caravan, when I bought a caravan, I was very, very detailed. I asked an enormous amount of questions on exactly what's included, exactly what wasn't. So I was able to understand when the caravan was delivered and I saw the tear weight, exactly what was included in that. A classic example during COVID, my business partner in Darwin, Shane, we weighed a number of, I won't say who it was, for a particular manufacturer that was being sold out of Darwin. And those vans were coming up there with a compliance plate on them. During COVID, because of the shortages and the issues with getting, you get those manufacturers getting their hands on items and goods and whatnot, a lot of the times to speed the process up because of demand, they were putting the compliance plates on while they were still waiting for final items to come. For example, a bike rack. So we actually weighed a couple of vans in Darwin where they were waiting for the bike rack to come, but they'd gone and got the compliance plate and stuck it on the caravan. So when we weighed that van in Darwin, it was 45 kilos more than what the tear plate said. Now, that mightn't sound like much, but if you've only got 500 or 550 or 600 kilos of payload, it's close to 10% of your payload's gone through one item. So you're really, it's something that can catch a lot of people out. As we'll go through in a minute with ATM, if you ever buy a caravan, the first thing you should do is what we say to our clients. We got a phrase: you shouldn't lust over the van until you've looked at the numbers. So the first thing you should do is go to the compliance plate on any caravan or camper, have a look at what the tear weight is, and have a look at what the aggregate trailer mass number is.
Basically, probably just look at that before you even walk inside the van.
That's what we do. Exactly right. Because if it doesn't have the ability to carry what type of caravan you are and the amount of gear you want to take, everyone's different. And there's no right or wrong with that. It's not my place to tell someone not to take something if that's what they want to take.
Yeah, very good advice.
But I mean, at the end of the day, if that caravan's not suitable because it's only got 500 kilos of payload, and you're a caravaner that carries coffee machines and air fryers and soda streams and this, that and everything else, then there's just no point going inside looking at that caravan because you're going to be overloaded and not insured and potentially not safe on the road. So, there's a wide variety of caravans out there these days, lots of makes, lots of models with lots of different dimensions on how they're made with payloads. That they are out there. I weighed a van in Gladstone Chatham Sands yesterday, and it had 900 kilos of payload for a family of 5. They were 300 kilos under when they had it loaded. But they were very clever, they were very smart, they were patient. And I understand not all clients have got that timeline and that sort of situational position, and that's cool. But my point is that they are out there if you're prepared to look, and you don't get caught up in just, oh, geez, I really like the layout of that van. And because this day and age, weights are very important. So let's have a look at the next one down on the list, which is aggregate trailer mass, ATM. All right, it's got a couple of meanings essentially. From a compliance point of view, it's the maximum loaded weight that your caravan or camper is allowed to be with everything in it. All right. So in your case, your ATM of your van is 2,000 kilos. All right. Just going to, our computer's having a bit of a lazy fit. And the tear weight according to your compliance plate is 1540. That's what it weighed with nothing in the camper. So if you take your tear weight figure away from your ATM, your aggregate trailer mass, your maximum, so that you get your payload, which is 460.
Yep.
So that's what I was mentioning before. They're the two very, very important numbers. If you're out there as a first-time caravaner, focus on those two numbers. And our advice from TTweigh is absolute minimum of 600 kilos you should be looking for. If you're a family travelling in a decent sized caravan, you realistically need 700 kilos if you want to carry full water. That was my experience. I had a van just over 700 kilos and I was always right on my limit. So 460, you're a single traveller. And, you're not, I could tell from what you were telling me you do and don't have, you don't have an awful lot of things in the camper other than water and jerry. You'll be surprised how quickly that goes. Now, the other thing just to note with ATM, we refer to ATM as the loaded weight of your van as well, or it's also referred to as your loaded weight of your van. So today I'll be saying to you, look, your ATM of your camper is this, your ATM of your camper is that. I'm referring to what its loaded weight is. So it's got that sort of dual meaning there. Now, when you go and weigh and calculate your caravan's ATM, you must be unhitched from the car like we are right now. All right. This is a common problem and one of the errors people make when they go to a weigh bridge. You must unhitch to get the weight of your camper or your caravan. If you don't, if you have the car on one and the camper on the other, that ball weight's getting lost between the two, and you're not calculating the full weight of the caravan or camper. All right. It's then made up of two numbers. Your caravan ATM. There are two weight points to your caravan. One's down through the axles and the other one obviously is on your tow hitch at the front. So we need to calculate the weight of both of those points and add them together to get the total weight of your caravan. Now, the weight metrics around your axle is referred to as your gross trailer mass, and the definition of that is the maximum amount of weight the caravan can exude down through the axles to the ground when it's hitched to the car. All right. Now we are simulating at the moment you being hitched to the car with my tow ball scale. That's the exact height of what it was, the camper was when it was hitched to the car. So that is actually a compliance number. It's actually a legal compliance, your GTM, and not a lot of people realise that. So a lot of people out there think that there's just one compliance number for your caravan, the weight. that's total weight. There's actually three. So the total weight is the compliance, your caravan's GTM, weight down through the axles to the ground.
So max GTM.
There is. It is on most compliance plates. Not all. So yours doesn't actually have one. Doesn't actually have a GTM. And that is, there are a couple of manufacturers out there that actually don't put GTMs on compliance plates, and some campers don't have them as well. So for the purpose of this exercise, I have put 2,000 kilos your ATM because you don't have a compliance. So if you don't have a compliance number in your compliance plate, there technically is no compliance.
As far as what I could find about my Modcon trailer is that there's a maximum load weight of 2 ton on my axle.
That is what's called your axle group loading or axle group limit number, which is AGL, which is that number there. You're dead right. So that is a 2,000 kilo capacity as well. That number is very, very important because in some instances that's how a client can get a ATM upgrade to their caravan. Hypothetically, your aggregate trailer mass is lower than your axle group loading. It's a bit like a vehicle. With most vehicles on the road, axle group loading numbers, front and rear, add up to more than what the GVM is. So you can go about getting a GVM upgrade done to your vehicle up to the summation of your axle capacities. So similarly with your caravan, you can get an ATM upgrade to your caravan or camper on a similar sort of premise to what happens with cars. So with cars, quite often the axle group limits for your front and rear axles, the summation of those two capacities add up to a figure higher than what your GVM is of your vehicle. So you can actually engage an engineer and increase your GVM up to the maximum axle group loading numbers front and rear for your car. Same principle applies with a caravan. So if your axle group loading figure on your caravan is say 2,000 kilos, have an ATM, so a maximum loaded weight lower than that, let's say 1,800, you can engage an engineer. They will still check things on your van to make sure that legally that can be upgraded, chains and tyre load ratings and all that sort of thing. But you can get that 1,800 kilos potentially increased to 2,000. And that's very, very common. The beauties of getting independently weighed like this is we can do the what-if analysis for you, take things in and out of your van and work out whether or not, that can get you across the line from a compliance point of view. Alrighty, so today I'm going to be providing you with 3 compliances for you. Even though technically you don't have one for the GTM, it'll still be shown there on the reporting. Okay?
Excellent.
With the vehicle, so there's 5 compliances for your vehicle. Your brake towing capacity is obviously the maximum amount of weight that your Pajero is allowed to tow behind it. All right, so factory's 2.5 tonne. We've been discussing with yours. You've got that piece of paper from a previous owner that got the brake towing increased to 3,000, which is very interesting. So, but in your case, you've only got a 2,000 kilo camper, so it doesn't make any difference. The old ratio of what you're towing compared to car weight. I'm a real person in that. I definitely don't believe you should be having a caravan or camper weighing more than what your car is. So that's a very important consideration as well. I would not be recommending, a vehicle of this size to be towing 3 tonne. You just don't want that scenario of, a mountain range or something like that, caravan pushing.
Oh, I tell you, someone did, because if we got a 3 tonne upgrade, yeah,
that's right.
Scary.
Exactly. All right.
I'm glad it's not me.
I think you've got the perfect size towing camper for the vehicle.
Oh, hint.
All right. So GVM, let's go through that very quickly. A maximum loaded rate that the Pajero, maximum total weight that the Pajero is allowed to be with everything in it. So people, fuel, accessories you bolt to the car, and gear you put inside. All right. 2,810 from memory is your GVM of this model Pajero. And the next one down on our list is GVM in combination. So obviously when you're in combination and towing anything behind your Pajero, whether it be a box trailer, camper, boat, whatever, you now have more tangible weight connected to the back of your vehicle in the form of that ball weight.
This is a number I'm really interested in with my vehicle.
That's right. And this is the one that catches a lot of people out.
This is the one that I've been questioning.
Unless you go and get a GVM upgrade, you don't have an extra allowance, but you've now got to accommodate that 220 kilos of ball weight or whatever it was. So Will be very interesting to see where you're at with that. The last one on my list here is the gross combination mass, all right, GCM, which is your combined mass of car and whatever you're towing as one driving down the road. Important thing to note here is that your ball weight's only included once in this calculation. All right, now this is a real trap, the GCM, with a lot of travellers out there, because a lot of the vehicles that are sold on our roads these days, the GCM is a limiting factor for clients. So almost all the twin cab utes on the market have GCMs that don't what we call add up. So the brake towing capacity and the vehicle's GCM do not add up to the GCM. And a lot of the medium wagons, so your Everests and MUXs and those sorts of vehicles, they also don't have GCMs that add up. So it's something to be very mindful of if you're buying one of those types of vehicles, is to make sure that you do your homework on how much gear you're carrying, number of people, and the size of what you're towing to make sure you fit into your GCM. Drum roll.
This is it, guys.
Let's go through it.
What we've been waiting for.
So here is my 3-page report. Page 1 is what we refer to as our data page. All right, so I've got all your personal details at the top. Got all of your compliance numbers for your camper listed at the top of our report. So yes, they're on your compliance plate. If you ever want to refer back to them, they are detailed right there for you. These are all your limits, okay, all your compliance limits you must be under. I've also listed here your tyre load ratings as well, off the tyres that are on your camper when we've weighed you today. We've also summarised your load that's in your camper when we've weighed you today, and mentioned a few things in there that you may not have. You've done the same thing with your Pajero in green underneath, so I've listed all your compliance numbers down applicable to your particular vehicle, including front 1200 and rear axle 1650. That would be an interesting one for me today, rear axle. And then also your tyre load ratings on your light truck, all-terrain tyres that are there as well. And again, I've summarised the load that was in your vehicle today when we've weighed you, just for reference. If you want to go back later, you'll know exactly what you've had in that. Your setup when we've weighed you today.
Very good.
All right, page 2 is our caravan camper. Are we ready?
Yes.
Let's go. Okay, so
I can see green.
here are your 3 compliances, remembering you don't have a GTM technically. So tow ball mass in black, these are your compliance limits. You've got to be under these numbers. In blue in the middle are your actual weights that I've weighed you today, and your results are over here on the right-hand side. So if you see a green negative number, that means you're under. You get a big tick. So I see a lot of green there, which is really good. So from an overall weight point of view, you're allowed 2,000 kilos with a camper, so full of water, and you've got water in both those tanks.
Yes.
You are 1884 kilos. Admittedly, you don't have a couple of food items in there, a freezer and a few other little bits and bolts.
Oh, there is some stuff in the freezer. It's about quarter full.
But mate, you have a very healthy 116 kilos.
Yeah, no, that's awesome. So I've got a lot to play with there. Yeah, no, that's good.
From a ball weight point of view, you're pretty good on that as well. We're 217.5 kilos.
Yeah, wow.
You are 11.5% of the loaded weight of the camper. So I think that's pretty good. It's yellow on mine because it's just outside our 9 to 11, but to be brutally honest with you, 11.5 is perfectly fine. Rather you be a little bit on the heavier side. Lighter is what contributes to sway more so than heavy can, if it's really, really bad. But light is what traditionally really affects your instability and sway. What's really interesting here are your quarter weights. It's very, very, very well balanced, almost identical. 833 on the driver's side, 834 on the passenger side. So very, very well weighted side to side. So the camper itself, as it sits there now, you've done a fantastic job. That's almost perfect, mate. So that I don't think you and I were too worried about the camper. Have a look at the makeup, and a lot of these big single axle camper trailers like this that are recessed, traditionally lend themselves to potentially being heavy on the balls. What I like about this particular camper though is they've really thought about the water tank positioning, particularly the second water tank. I really like that's the upright behind the camp.
My issue is going to be what's going to happen with the empty piece.
Yep.
What's that going to do to the ball weight?
What do you reckon it's going to do? Look, it's going to increase it, there's no doubt about it. So
I don't think it'll increase it as much as what you might think it will.
You're right. The 80 kilos behind, if you camp off grid, you will use that water.
Of course.
And that's why we do exactly what we do. Traveller myself, I had to change things in my caravan where my water tanks were positioned to give me optimum balance. So So how about we have a look at your car? We'll see where the car's at. The next thing down on my list is compliance and safety check. I'm going to come back to that. I just want to do your car number. Alrighty, so the first thing I'm going to do here is go through your vehicle numbers on its own, the unhitched numbers, and then I'm going to go through all the compliance numbers with the caravan hitched. Okay. So two completely different sets of numbers. And again, I touched on earlier why we do this. A lot of cars set up for travel quite often go over their front axle capacity because of winches and bull bars and all that sort of stuff. So here is the numbers for your Pajero. Nothing attached as you drove up to the
Nothing attached.
So you are 2818 gross vehicle mass compliance limit. Without the caravan or the camper on, you're 2623. You got 187 kilos up your sleeves. Front and rear axle, you're very close to your front axle. You definitely can't even put a bull bar on.
I'm surprised the front axle. I've got nothing in the front.
Well, no, but you're positioned very close to it, so a portion of your weight goes on your front axle.
I am a bit heavy.
So I didn't say that.
Yeah, it's got to be a reality, guys.
So, and the rear axle is just 203 kilos under. So let's have a look now with the camper attached, because you can probably do some rough arithmetic, and we're going to be, I think, in a little bit of trouble, particularly with our rear axle. So down below here is all your numbers with the camper attached on the back.
Oh boy, okay, I've seen those numbers. All right, yeah, it doesn't surprise me.
So we're nicely, of course, under our brake towing.
Oh, wow,
We are just over our GVM with the current ball weight the way it is. That GVM number would be able to be, we could sort that today, because you've got plenty of room in your camper, so we can move a few things from the car to the camper to adjust that. I'm not too concerned with that number. You're well under your GCM. Front axle, when you got the caravan on the back or camper on the back, it's the rear axle. Yeah. So
okay, 127 kilos.
Yes. So that the contributing factors there, all right, are obviously your bull weight at 1.5 times. So that's clearly, you're on the heavier side with your bull weight at 11.5%. So the ability to potentially trim a little bit of that bull weight and get it down a little bit will help your rear axle, and obviously your GVM figure as well. Unfortunately, mate, a lot of these mid-size wagons, your MUXs are the same. They've only got a 1650 rear axle load. A lot of these mid-size vehicles just have fairly modest rear axle compliance limits on them. So it sort of limits how much gear and weighty gear you can carry in the back of it. So, you definitely are able to fix this, believe it or not, but it's going to be a joint effect of tidying up our hitch assembly, trying to get that closer to down, and we need to get the ball weight down. So,
camper as well.
Realistically down to around the 9.5%.
Yeah, okay.
Well, straight away, do you need the two diesel jerrys that are on the front?
No.
So one of the variations we might do straight away today is take those off and see what that does to your ball weight, because that alone could well take 20-25 kilos, which in turn is going to take close to 40 kilos off your rear axle. So that's where we are from the car. I just want to now duck back up to that safety and compliance section underneath the caravan, page 2. So there's a few things here we just like to run through with our clients, and these are just various compliance and safety things that not a lot of caravanners are aware of. The first one is an Australian design rule, ADR 43, and it's around rear overhang on your caravan and camper. There is a limit as to how far things can protrude behind the back of your caravan. You don't have an issue with yours.
I don't.
And I'll explain why. The bikes are the big contributor here. The ADR refers to how far things can protrude behind the back of your van. And what you do on a single axle is you measure from your hub to the forward compartment on your camper or caravan. If that is 3.7 metres or less, then whatever the actual measurement is the basis for your rear overhang.
Yeah,
right?
okay.
So and you then turn the tape measure around, you measure from the same place on your centre of your hub on a single, and the furthest thing back on your camper or caravan can't exceed that measurement.
Yeah,
all right.
okay.
Now you're well under, because you've got a recessed axle further back on the camper. But on for instance, on a single caravan or a dual axle caravan where the axles are in the middle of the van, you've got to be very mindful and very careful of what you have sticking out the back of
So
your
you
caravan.
said I'm fine with that.
You're well under, because the distance between your hub to here compared to your hub to here, that's shorter than what the distance forward is. So you're well and truly forward. No issue at all.
Yeah, like I mentioned before, you can see how far back the rear axle is on these Modcons.
Yeah, that's right. So you don't have an issue with that, but it is something we just run through with caravanners. There's a lot of first timers and well, just even some experienced caravanners aren't aware of that.
Yeah.
And it's important if you do want to look at adding bikes or something like that to your setup. The next one down are these do not overtake stickers that you may see on caravans. It's important to note that they're actually not compulsory. You don't actually have to have them. And that's why the vast majority of caravans don't come out with them on from the manufacturers. Why do people have them? Essentially, if your combined length of your tow vehicle and whatever you're towing is over 7.5 metres combined, and if you momentarily need to traverse another lane when turning, so either at a roundabout in and out of a driveway or at an intersection or something like that, so due to your length, you momentarily traverse 2 lanes with length. If you don't have one of those stickers on, potentially you're at risk if someone comes up and has an accident with you, scoots up the inside or something. So if you do have one of those on the back of your caravan, then you are momentarily allowed to traverse another lane when turning, and other road users have to give way to you. So one of my partners in South Australia has referred to this as a butt covering sticker, which is a good way of referring to it. So,
Butt covering sticker.
So yeah, I mean, we have them if you're interested, and I can show you where to put it if you hang it in your camper. So they're just a good butt covering.
Butt covering sticker. I believe I need one of those. As Terry would agree. Hey, Terry and Robin.
Very good. I'm not going there, mate. All right, the next one down on my list is another ADR 61. This is all around number plates on the back of caravans. This has all come about predominantly because of speed cameras. So most new caravans, most new caravans are fine because they have to abide by the ADRs. It's the older vans that come into issues with this. Yours is fine. The number plate can't be more than 1.3 metres.
So if I'm naughty, they'll be able to photograph my rego.
Well, that's the next point. That's the next point. This ADR is just the positioning of the number plate.
Oh,
So, and it must be lit at night and no more than 1.3 metres to the centre of the plate from the ground. The next one down, though, is more your positioning and visibility. Now, this is not an ADR, it's a state-by-state governance. All I've done is put the worst-case scenario state down here, which is actually the Eastern Seaboard, Queensland, New South Wales, Victoria.
Have I passed that one?
You have passed. Queensland in particular is the worst state. They're very ruthless with this. $330 fine, actually. And what this refers to is that the whole entire number plate, every letter, must be fully visible from 20 metres away at a 45-degree angle. So if you've got something impeding, say a bike rack or even a water jerry or something like that, or right up alongside your number plate, and impedes a couple of letters at a 45-degree, you're at risk of potentially being pinged for that. They ping you with vehicles as well.
Do they?
Your tow hitch is in. So if you've got a number plate, say here, and you've got your tow hitch that impedes it, they can ping you for that
They
too.
can figure that for as well.
So it's just something to be aware of. There's different rules in different states.
Okay.
WA basically don't care as long as you can see it from behind. Northern Territory and SA have slightly different variations of that rule. So if you abide by the worst case scenario, you're going to be right Australia-wide basically. The next one down on our list is that ratio we were talking about with car weight to caravan weight. So we personally recommend to our clients that we don't like to see the caravan being any greater than 90% of the weight of the vehicle. Again, there's no legislation requirement or anything like that in this regard. This is just purely a recommendation from us. And that's what we recommend. There's nothing to say you can't do more than that. You can't do 100%. But, I have weighed a number of clients that have rung me from various places around Australia after, going down mountain ranges and they've felt that caravan pushing the vehicle, and we've had to speak to them about strategies to help them with that on the fly, emptying water, moving things around, that sort of stuff. So, from a safety point of view, we just recommend that caravan doesn't exceed 90% of the weight.
Which is probably about, in my case, about 2.5 tonne.
Yeah, that's right. And that's why I was saying earlier, I don't think from a safety viewpoint, this sort of vehicle at its 2,800 GVM, you should be towing at 3. And there's nothing legally to say you can't. It's just, in my opinion, towing vans, I wouldn't be going there myself.
No.
The next one down is just really a really good tip for, I think, caravanners, and that is around the tow hitch, your tow pin nut, all right? So this nut underneath your DO35 or your 50mm ball, would you believe 24% last year loose tow hitch? Strongly suggest, as a tip I give all clients, is whenever you're doing your inspections on your car and your van, checking all your wheel nuts and trailer nuts and that sort of stuff, always double check that nut. My business partner in Darwin had one instance a couple of years ago, quite a terrifying one, where one particular client came to us and basically it was, and I'm not over-exaggerating, 2 turns by a finger and it came off. In Queensland, they do part of the Van Safe program with Caravan Queensland and the government. They don't check these and they consider technically a quarter turn to be loose. Just a tip from us that we recommend that as part of your precautions and such checks on your travelling that you do that. Over time with gravel roads and whatnot, it can potentially loosen, so it's just something to do. The next one down on our list here is around all your chains, connections, all that side of things on your camper. So, you're under 2.5 tonnes, so technically you can get away with 1 chain. There are 2 on there, which is great. I think that's fine, no problem at all. I'm not going to get into an argument with you around whether the legalities of these yellow chains. There's plenty of that on the internet. These are designed so as that part there, your hammerlock section, is actually connected to your vehicle. And then these hooks hang down. I refer to them as dog's balls. Hang down, and then your chain connects to it. So, it's arguably, these are predominantly designed for lifting applications. So again, I'm not going to go into the legalities of it. I'm not an engineer. We do encourage clients, if they're looking at something like this, to consider the Morby hook, which is specifically compliant and legal with the Australian towing standard 4177 and ADR 62. These have been designed by an Australian company called Dick's Engineering, based in Renmark in South Australia. And as I said, they're quite a different setup, because that portion there is connected to your vehicle where your D-shackle is, and then this section here is actually connected to your chain. So it's specifically been designed for a towing application. So it just gives you that peace of mind. Again, if you were going to use those, I would encourage you though to swap that around.
Dog balls on the back.
The hammerlock section on the back, yeah.
Hammerlock, yeah. You change it to hammerlock.
That's right. So your chains and that side of things are fine. Encourage our clients to cross the chains. There's no legal requirement to say you must do that. It's just a safety thing to create that cradle effect. But yeah, other than that side of things, that is all fine in your situation. The next one down on my list here is around tyre loads. Thanks. We're going to go through in a minute what the recommended pressures are. The tyre industry recommend that you don't exceed 90% of a tyre's load rating with actual weight. So it's usually the single axle caravans that run into issues with that, because they usually get very close being heavy, particularly the bigger single axles. Duals usually don't run into any problem. You've got really good light truck, highly rated tyres on your vehicle as well, so you're well under all around there, so no issues there. The last one, and I've probably kept the most important safety thing to the end, from our opinion at TTweigh, we strongly recommend clients consider TPMS, tyre pressure monitoring systems, if you're towing. A couple of reasons. Number one, single caravan or trailer applications, obviously it goes without saying, if there's a blowout or something happens on a tyre, you can have severe ramifications if that happens. The dual axle, a lot of the times you won't know whether there's a flat or a puncture on a dual. It'll carry it for you. So by the time you realise, you've invariably lost that tyre completely. The benefit of a TPMS system, obviously, is it'll alert you quite quickly that an issue, and hopefully you can pull over and save the tyre. That's the first benefit of them. The second benefit of them, though, is just actually being able to monitor your pressures of your car and your caravan in real time in one location. So, tyres are not cheap these days, and these tyres on these cars and caravans, can range up to $500 a corner, and pressures are critical in tyre life. So, as we got in our report here, basically the recommendation from the industry is 4 to 5 psi should be your increase from cold to hot pressures. And the benefit of a TPMS system on your dash is you can monitor that in real time, and just make sure that those tyres are going up by the right.
It shouldn't increase more than 4 or 5 psi above your cold pressure tyres on highway.
Correct. So if for instance, and we see this a lot on towing applications when caravans are attached, on your rear, if your pressure of your rear tyres are going up significantly, let's say 8 to 10 psi, the idea there is that you don't have enough air in your rear tyres, all right? There's too much contact patch with the ground because of the weight, and therefore it's heating, and therefore it's raising the pressure quickly, all right? So that's an illustration that you actually need more air in that tyre, because the increase from cold to hot is high. Conversely, the other way around. If it's not rising at all, which often happens on the front when you attach a caravan, what that means is there's not enough contact patch with the ground. And therefore, usually it's only the middle of the tyre that's had contact patch with the ground. With the rear, if there's not enough pressure, it's usually, you think about your tyre, it's compressed because there's a lot of weight on the back, and the two outside components of the tyre in contact with the road. And that's what contributes to your scalloping of your tyres and your heating of the tyre, which is raising that pressure. So quite often when you attach a caravan, you've actually got to lower your PSI or your pressure of your tyres at the front a little bit just to increase that contact patch with the ground, and increase your pressure in the rear to compensate for that extra weight on your rear axle of 1.5 times your ball weight. And that will in turn give you greater tyre life. So the beauty of a TPMS system is you can just monitor that from your dash. Every car's different. Every tyre's a little bit different, and it's compound and what it's. That's a general guide we say to clients, 4 to 5 PSI, but the best is just monitoring that on the dash.
Yeah.
If it's going up by 10 PSI, you've got it. And a lot of clients say to us, look, the car's got a set in it, so I don't need it. The beauty, it's a little bit like getting professionally weighed as opposed to a weigh bridge. This is a very unique product as well. We stock and sell the Australian product called iCheck TPMS. They're based in Melbourne. Really, really good gear. 2-year warranty on it all. The point of difference with this particular product is that it's very, very easy to install and use. And that, unlike the other products on the market, the parameters are automatically set. So you don't need to program anything with inside the unit itself. So they come in an 8 and a 10 pack for caravans. So the single axle comes with 4 for the car plus 1 for a spare, 2 for the caravan plus 1 for a spare, or you can put 2 spares on the back of the land. And then there's a 10 pack for dual axle caravans as well. And essentially the monitor rotates from the car to the caravan every few seconds, so you can see all the different tyre temperatures as well as pressures on all of the various tyres around your setup. But as I said, the real benefit of this particular product is it's very, very easy to use. The lower alarm parameters are set at 15% below whatever pressure you screw them on it, and 25% above. So you are notified pretty quickly if there's a loss of inflation. All right. Now, a lot of the inbuilt systems in cars, I used to have it on my Patrol, were set around about 30 PSI. So if you're running 55 PSI on the rear of your Patrol, you're dropping almost half the pressure out of that before you're notified that there's an issue. The beauty of the iCheck is you're notified very, very quickly that there's an issue. So hopefully you can pull over and save that tyre, or just, reduces your risk factor there of something going wrong. What it also means is if you want to change, let's say you do a gravel corrugated road or go off road and do sand driving or something like that, where you drop your pressures below that predetermined number that's in the car, say 30 PSI, let's say you drop it to 20 to go on the beach. With most vehicles, that light will automatically come on. So therefore, if you get an actual flat, you won't know. The beauty of this is you'll screw them back on after you've dropped your pressure to 20 PSI, and the lower alarm automatically recalibrates to 15% below that. You don't need to go into the unit and reprogram anything. So very, very simple to use, very effective.
All you do is you just undo it.
Yep.
And then screw it back on.
Once you've adjusted your
and
tyre
once
pressure.
it's done that, it's just
reprograms by Bluetooth.
back to that.
Yep.
Yeah.
Brilliant product.
That's a good idea.
Very good. I personally have run other brands, and there's nothing wrong with them. It's just that I'm a bit lazy, and with a dual axle caravan that I had, I frankly couldn't be bothered going around reprogramming 8 of them. Because invariably you're going to run a different pressure at the front, pressure at the rear, and a different pressure in your caravan.
Well, that's true.
You're going to be reprogramming different numbers.
If I'm on Fraser Island, I'm going to have more pressure in the towing. I'm going to have more pressure in the rear than the front of that.
Exactly. So, so we obviously stock and sell those, and it's a very, very, from us, it's something to seriously consider if you are a caravanner. It only needs to save you once. It only needs to save you once, and you basically get your investment back. So, and of course, if the other thing is, if you're not towing, which I'm not, but I still use them. They can be on your car full time. You can take it off this vehicle and put it on the next one if you sell or change. Yeah, really good.
Excellent.
All right, so the last thing, let's have a look at some tyre pressures. All right, so based on your load rating of your camper All right, your tyres had a maximum PSI of 65 PSI, and I think the rating from memory was 1,250 kilos per corner. So based on your actual weights that you've got in there today, I'm estimating you should be running around about 43, 45, somewhere around there cold. If you were doing a decent drive, and if you didn't have something like a TPMS system, I'd be encouraging you to pull over half an hour down the road and just run your gauge around and just double check what that increase is. But going by the weights and the tyre specs that are on that camper, that's about where you need to be.
Awesome. Well, thanks for that.
All right, now when you're running with the caravan on the back, you should be running around about 45 PSI cold on the back of the car. That'll come up close to 50 by the time it's hot, and that is not uncommon, because what you've got to remember is you've got another 330 kilos of weight from that ball weight on the back of your hitch, which affects your axle. So that's compressing those rear tyres and considerably. So around about 45 PSI. This has been formulated at the front. I don't recommend you run 30 PSI. That's too low. So I'd be somewhere around about the 35 mark on the front of your car.
These tyre pressures are only when I'm towing, eh?
That's only when you're towing. Exactly right. Alrighty, so what we want to do now, mate, is first thing I want to do is just go through the level of the van, just check that, or level of the camper, because, we'll just quickly have a look at the hitch setup, and then we'll start looking at a couple of variations. What I'm thinking firstly is we'll take the two juries off and do a variation with those off and just see what difference that makes. And then we'll start looking at potentially whether there's anything in the car that you want to put into the camper, right, because we know we've got to remove some weight from the car. So I think what we might then do is look at going, rightio, what stuff in the car can we move into the camper, particularly at the back, to accommodate some more room in the car and some ball weight adjustment as well, before we empty water last. Alrighty, so we've made a couple of changes. So we're just going to have a look at this first variation to your numbers. So I've just updated the system. We've now got a 4-page report that we'll provide to you. So the first 3 pages are the base numbers, they haven't changed. What I've done is I've tacked on a variation page. So what we're really focusing on here is the ball weight of the van, because the ball weight of the camper will obviously affect the GVM of the car. So we're focusing really here on your ball weight of your camper, 217. We're just trying to get that down, okay? So we'll go down now to page 4. All right, we've done a variation, which is we've removed the diesel tank from the front, one of the 2 jerry cans and one of the 2 gas bottles, all from the front of the camper, all right? And that's gone down now from 217 to 193, so around about 24 kilos off the ball weight. And you can see now that your tow ball mass is 10.5%. So what that's done to the car is that you're almost back to the GVM tips.
Yeah, we're close, aren't we?
And you're back to 91 kilos on your rear axle.
Okay, so we're 91 off,
So you can definitely still afford to go lighter. So as I was saying to you off camera, I might be looking, you've got some ability to store gear on top of the camper. I'd probably be looking at some storage boxes or a box or 2 on the top at the back.
So we can go down an extra 15 to 20 kilo down and still be at a safe.
Correct. Exactly right. And what you also got to remember here is you're full of water. So, what your sort of worst case in that respect from a ball weight, because it's only going to get heavier once you release water.
That's the thing we need to also consider as well.
So, if you were to drop another 15 kilos, another 20 kilos off your rear axle, you're back to 70 kilos over. And that's now starting to get to a figure that you can probably remove from the car. Yeah, you're going to get very, very close. So I'm not too worried about your GVM. It's your rear axle, that's the real concern. Okay, so how about we do some more? We've just gone through the process of emptying the 80-litre tank that you got right at the back of the camper first, didn't we? It was really interesting. We figured it'd have a significant effect on your ball weight, which it does. So
actually, let's go back and have a look here. Yeah. So guys, if you have a look, my camper trailer got 2 water tanks, 120 litre, which is right underneath here, and it's got an 80 litre right here at the back. And we just took the weight out of the 80 litre, and what did that do?
I took our
ball weight increased from 183 to 202, basically 20 kilos. Which doesn't sound like a lot, but it's positioned so close to the axle that's even, you know, out of 80 litres, 80 kilos, usually something at the back of your caravan or camp is around 50% effect on your ball. This is quite a bit closer to your axle, so you know, it was only 20 kilos, but in your situation, with how important that ball weight is to your rear axle, 20 kilos is a lot. You know?
Yeah.
So what we've discussed off camera is that you really need, from a usage point of view, if you have to use water, you've got to use that closer tank to your axle first, 120. And I think you were saying to me off camera that it was, you know, it's auto-filling straight into that other tank. You really need to isolate those tanks and
It can be isolated.
keep that water in that back tank.
Yeah, I can isolate it. So what I need to do is use the big 120 litre first to try to keep as much weight on the back.
Yeah.
So to keep the ball weight low as possible.
And the other thing we've discussed, which is something for you just to think about from a, you know, a bit of a what if for the solution is, you know, you've got the ability potentially here to create some structure to carry some more weight or ballast at the back of your camper. So you're fortunate that you've got room in your ATM. So, you know, one of the suggestions I had is whether or not you can carry some jerry cans of water or something at the back. You know, you'd have to reposition number plates and that sort of stuff.
Yeah.
From a rear overhang, you've got plenty of room to be able to put something along the back here, mounted off potentially maybe that.
Yeah, we're talking getting something made up, mounted here so I can carry a couple of jerry cans of water.
Because you've got the room in your ATM to do that. You've got the room in the GCM to do that. And what that does, where it's positioned with that lever effect, is it will lighten your ball weight. Now, what that means is you've got to move things from your car.
Yes.
You're over. So the only place you can move that is the caravan or the camper, and you've only got limited space to do that. So by ballasting here, it means that you are able to use some of your forward area. You know, we may need some more fine tuning about that when you go and do everything, but it gives you that ability to control your ball weight better. It's just you know, food for thought, options. You can go away now, mate, and
Oh, well,
and
yep,
have a
I've
think.
got some work to do. Oh, I
Have a
don't need to
think.
have a think. I know what I've got to do.
Yeah,
And so, yeah. All right, cool. Thanks for that.
no worries.
Well, there you go, guys. It's all done. And let me tell you, the numbers were very, very interesting, as you saw there. So I'll have follow-up videos and talk more about these numbers that came up. So, yeah, I suspected I was a bit worried. Where I was worried is I had cause to be worried, didn't I?
You did, mate. You did.
So,
You're
now,
not alone, and you're not alone in that respect. But
no, so what 91% have the same issues that I had.
yeah. And the one saving grace you do have is you've got options. You know, your camper's good, you've got room in your camper, so
Yeah.
you've got some options, and we've spoken to that today. So.
I've got a lot of options, and so it's not a major problem. It is going to work. It's going to be fixable.
Yeah.
I know what I have to do, so I'll have a follow-up video and I'll explain to you what I need to do in my vehicle. But yeah, weight's going to have to come out of my vehicle virtually, and weight's got to come off the tow ball. So, but weight's got to come off the tow ball, not because we are over on that. We are well and truly under. It's the rear axle weight, what I've always been talking about, guys. So, yes, big learning curve today, big learning curve. And I'm really glad I did it, because if I hadn't have done this, that thing would have been overloaded, which, yeah, not good, not good. So, thank you, Cameron.
Pleasure, mate. Pleasure.
It was a
Great to meet
pleasure. It was a pleasure meeting you.
you. Yeah, thank you.
And I'm so happy. I'll tell you what, we've been lucky with the weather. Look at that. It's rain out there.
Yeah, we're very lucky.
Hey, I hope you'll be lucky if you're next way. Hopefully it's not out that way. That's pretty heavy.
Oh, well, at least we got
So-
done, mate. That's the main thing.
Now, we
And
were
I'll-
here for, what, 4 hours?
Yeah, 4 hours, yeah.
It's actually
4.5 hours, yeah.
So, guys, 4.5 hours. Generally, it doesn't take that long because we've filmed it. But in saying that, you usually do spend at least 2 or 3
2 to
hours.
3 hours is
Yeah.
normal way. Yeah.
So, So again, I don't want to hold you up.
No
He's
worries,
got
mate.
another job to go to in about 5-10 minutes. Luckily, whoever it is, he lives in this area, South Bundaberg, and that's where we are now. So I'll let you go, and yeah, check out the next video on what my plans are. I already know what I'm going to do, what my plans are on this vehicle, and you probably, most of you have a hint. I have mentioned about doing this in the past. So till then, if you've got any questions, ask below. I'm sure Cameron will probably keep an eye out
Definitely.
on the comments.
I can do that for you. No
If
problem.
there's anything that
A bit tricky. I'm
Tricky?
happy to help.
Cameron can ask if any help. And if you get the opportunity, guys, if you see Cameron in your area, do yourself a favour. If you've never done it before, get yourself weighed. All right, your caravan, your camper, whatever you do,
It's
even
a piece of mind.
trailer floats, because yeah, it's a real eye-opener, guys. It's a real eye-opener. You saw what happened today. All right, you saw what happened today. Now I can leave today confidently knowing exactly what I've got to do to be legal. So, and that's my goal. Whatever it takes, I will do, and I'm happy to do it. Because I don't want to be illegal. I want to be legal and safe. Safety is more important. Doesn't matter what you use and what type of fridge or freezer you use. Safety is my main concern. So if I've got to lose something, that's fine. I'll just lose it, whatever it takes. So that's the goal. But I'll explain that in the next video. Till then, cheers. Bye.